Welcome to the Morning Ping podcast, where coffee, innovation, and community kick off the day. This podcast dives into bold ideas, startup realities, and the people rethinking everyday experiences through technology and grit. Hosted by storyteller Justin Starbird, alongside Ping co-founders Jane Lowe and Rob Whitten. The Morning Ping brings a distinctively New England edge to building what's next. Grab your coffee and join our hosts.
Welcome back to the Morning Ping. My name is Justin Starbird, and as always, I get to welcome co-founders of Ping, Jane Lowe and Rob Whitten, to the show. Guys, thanks for joining me again today.
Well, good to see you again, Justin. How you doing?
Hey, a day with you guys is a good day, so no complaints here.
I know, right? Yeah.
Today's kind of cool, though. We get to welcome a new member of the Ping team to the podcast. Would you guys like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I'll do it because I'm super excited to have him on board. So Rory MacKean just joined us. It's been 2 months now, 3 months.
I think it's getting close to 3 months. Yeah.
Holy crap. Well, it's been great, right? Because Rory, we met through Mass Robotics, we had just kind of met and chatted a little bit. He had done some really interesting things, with Turtle and a couple other things, and I'll let him get into it. But anyways, he wrote us one day and said, "Hey, I'd love to come by the pod, maybe help set up." And I was like, I don't think I could use somebody for a couple of hours. How am I going to do this? And Jane kept pushing me. She's like, "Call Rory, like he could help." And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll just give him a ring. And then Rory said, I'd actually be way more interested in a bigger thing as opposed to just helping out for a little bit. And so he just really kind of just started showing up at the site and helping. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And so now he is our CTO. And so it's been awesome. He brings like so much tech depth to Ping, and it's just going to take us to the next level. Like I am so incredibly excited to have him on board, not only because it takes a lot of load off of me to deliver, technical stuff, and allows me to go, really work on, a bunch of other things, developing the business and that sort of thing. But, he knows things that, it happens that his background just aligns super nicely with Ping and all the things we're doing. And he came super highly recommended. Like when we told Helen, it's like, hey, we're thinking about bringing Rory on. She's like, do it now, get him on. And it was like, oh, okay. And we checked with a couple other people, and everybody had the same opinion. Anybody that's worked with Rory has really enjoyed it. So that's Rory in a nutshell. But I'll let him do more of his own intro too.
Yeah, Rory, is that your recollection of this? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gene.
Oh, and just to double down on, we did talk to a bunch of people about Rory, and then we were like, is it a red flag if somebody has no red flags? Because everyone only had positive things to say. So,
Rory, I don't know. You should probably just bounce. I guess
I think my work here is done. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna post that 4-minute monologue from Rob on LinkedIn, and that's your bio.
I will take it. That's nice.
Well, so for those that maybe don't know your history and what you've done and what you've accomplished so far, that are just getting introduced, give us an overview of your background and what you built prior to joining the team.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, and yeah. Thanks again, Robert Jane. That was super nice. So I started in robotics. I kind of wanted to be in robotics forever. I saw a Scientific American special way back when on the 270 class at MIT, and that sort of set me down the path of robotics. So I ended up studying mechanical engineering, did my undergrad at MIT, and then I went to Rensselaer Polytech to get my master's in mechanical engineering as well. And what I worked on there is factory automation. So the lab I was working at, we were making machines that make other things. So fixed automation. Specifically, I was working on a robot that did investment casting, which is sticking wax parts together, which again is a world I didn't really know existed, but is super useful. And then after graduating, I went to a company called Mobile Robots. Got into basically robots that drive around. And what we were making is a robot that could create a floor plan of a building and intelligently navigate within that floor plan, which was pretty cool then, back when I was doing this, and then actually still not a totally well-solved problem now. Um, but what I sort of found there was that people would ask me what the robot does when I go to a trade show, and I'd have to say like whatever you want it to do, because it didn't actually, it had all these skills and capabilities, but didn't actually do anything. We were just hoping our customers would then buy it and then integrate it into some other system. Um, so
Build it and they
then,
will come. That's
exactly,
yeah,
it's
it's an
it is so
amazing
simple,
roboticist strategy. Yeah.
so simple.
Mhm.
Everybody should do it.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, so I went to a company called Harvest Automation, which was just starting. And what appealed to me about them, started by a group of iRobot alums, who had been working on the Roomba and sort of like were looking for other things to do. But they spent some time looking for an application that they could build a robot for. So the robot did exactly this task that they identified, which was yet another thing I didn't know existed, but which was moving potted plants around nurseries and greenhouses. So as it turns out, moving round things around to different locations. Um, and I did that for a while. I bounced around doing all the jobs besides mechanical engineering because I wanted to see how a robotics company worked. Um, and when I circled back to having done just about everything at the company, I left and did a startup of my own with a guy named Joe Jones, who I had met there, who was the inventor of the Roomba. And we created a company called Turtle, which is a solar-powered weeding robot for home gardens. So like a Roomba for your garden. And that taught me so much about like, the building a robot for scale, but also just like the business aspects of how do you like fund and start and run a really tech-heavy robotics company.
Yeah.
And it was fun. We ended up doing reasonably well. We did a Kickstarter. We ended up building, thousands of robots and selling them. But it was kind of not enough, as it turned out. Um, and so yeah, that's sort of like did a little bit more work at Harvest, get them back running, and then found Ping.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Well, all right. So I got to ask then, you were, tooling around the garden and the greenhouse and, what about Ping? That's outside. you know, uh, what else about it appealed to you and made it something that the mission resonated with you to leave all that behind and come here.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, so as Rob said, I had met these guys down at Mass Robotics, so I knew of them. Um, but I think actually one of the most compelling things that happened is I was up visiting the pod. This probably would have been in January or something like that. And Rob had walked me through the pod and like showed me how it worked. And then uh, he put a sign out on the street that just said, you know, free drinks. And cars just like pulled in, like they just wanted drinks. And I was like, this is so amazing to like have customers actually want the thing that you're making. Like it's funny. It's like the thing I had found at Turtle and Harvest, both of them, was that like on the technical side, we actually built exactly the robots that we wanted to build. Like, they didn't cost, they cost a little more than we wanted to, and maybe they took a little longer to build, but technically they did exactly what we had set out to do. And yet we got to the end of the road and the market wasn't there. Like maybe we had just mistimed it, but it's like uh, it became just like super frustrating to like work on something and then turned out like, oh well, nobody really wanted it or not enough people wanted it. So when I was, kind of looking around for the next thing, it's like I really wanted to have something where there's this real pull of like, there's the customer demand, and then it becomes an execution of like, how do you build the thing that these people want, and how do you get towards that? And it's a real like guiding force that I really I really had been missing. And so
It's funny.
that was, I think, like off the bat, like that pull was super appealing to me.
Yeah, that's cool. How about for you guys? Jane, Rob, when you were thinking about a CTO, I mean, I know that he didn't come with any red flags, which was its own red flag, right? But
Yeah,
what?
when it's too good to be true, you're like, wait a second, like yeah, there's something wrong here. Yeah,
No,
Make
no.
some more calls. Yeah.
So
yeah.
what made it the right fit for this stage of where Ping is at?
Gosh, I think we just kind of got along right away. I think that was part of it. Like all of our personalities mixed. I think really well, and like just from our first couple of meetings together, we were able to talk through all the things you need to talk through as a leadership team without like too much angst or anything. Jane and I argue sometimes, and he's able to deal with that. So it's like it's a healthy, argument of like customer versus technology, right? There's a healthy tension there, and I think he was able to come in and like sometimes selectively break ties and like be able to deal with that, but also like got to get dirty sometimes. He would just jump right into the commissary, start filling syringes, and like was not turned off by the fact that hey, if we mess up, guess what? It's going to be sticky, and we're going to have to get a mop. So
Yeah.
I think that
Was it-
was also
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
wasn't
think,
too far in before I dumped a whole bucket of syrups all over the place. It
Oh yeah,
was
that was a good
oh, we've all
way.
been
good
there.
rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, still happens to me. I think that I think it was the perfect timing because Rob had built the pilot by hand, like an amazing
Uh,
accomplishment, and it really worked. But I think that for where we are today, and it's an autonomous pod, I think now requires a deeper, like Rob, to be honest, is not a robotics engineer, right? He's like, he can
yeah.
actually fix anything. He can build and fix anything, but he's not a robotics engineer, and that's what we need.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. My career, I was always the technical program manager, right? I was never a professional engineer. And so when it comes to, somebody really getting into the nitty gritty of stuff and, being able to debug things that are just, eight levels deep, you need somebody like Rory to be able to jump in there. And, I was able to make the pilot good enough to prove our concept and architecture wise like that would be more my strength, but yeah, having somebody take it to the next level in terms of performance and ways to integrate, that's I think what he really brings to the table.
What about from your perspective, Rory? We've talked, so Jane and Rob and I, we've been on the show and talked a lot about what's broken in the drive-through experience. And, so I'm curious from your perspective as, as Rob calls you, the builder, what is actually broken behind the scenes? What do you see that it needs fixing?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's so I think of it as a queuing problem. I think this is sort of one of the, I don't know, as you dive into this, there's things that aren't like necessarily super obvious to 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 people from the outside. But the thing that strikes me is like there's you as you pull through a drive-through, like there's a sequence of cars and like there's only one path. And so like it is really critical to keep things moving. Um, but there's with existing drive-throughs, like there's a bunch of like legacy support that needs to be in place that they can't really escape from. So like any place that supports a customer pulling up and then placing their order at that time, like as a regular occurrence, like means if you come in right behind somebody who has ordered three sandwiches and a very customized drink that the barista or drink server, whoever, like doesn't really know how to do, or they just had a bunch of people come up to their walk-up window or whatever to their counter. You need to wait for that, like, and you are stuck behind them. And there's sort of no way to escape that. And they can't get ahead because the order hasn't been placed until they get there. Um, so you end up sort of stuck behind them. So like the idea of like you just need to move people through and like it's a queuing problem, I guess, is sort of one of the things that I think is not super obvious. So throughput and waiting are all things you need to think about. And like as long as there is a wide variety of orders that a drive-through is supporting, if they're going to mix in foods, if they're going to mix in other things that can take a long time, it slows everybody up while they're waiting for that to happen. Um, so like we're starting with a real focus on here are the things that we do them well, we do them quickly, and we do them right, and we get people through. That's a win-win for the customer. Obviously, that's a win for us because we can get more cars through and get more customers through. So.
Why, again, we've talked a little bit about this previously, but why do you think that whole, the speed, accuracy, coordination, to your point, the cues, why is that persistent for so long? And, why hasn't somebody come along and attempted to fix it in this way?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's two things, and one is like doing payment on site is a clunky thing. Like nowadays, like people don't carry cash as much, obviously. So like a cash transaction is just takes some time inevitably when someone pulls up to the drive-through. So if you need to support that, like that takes some time. How do you tip somebody? Are you supposed to tip them if you give them $10 and then say like, give me two back or something like that? You still need to sort that out. If it's hard to hand someone your phone and say like, I want to do that tap to pay or whatever, giving them your card. Like the payment slows things down. So like existing drive-throughs all need to support this, right? Because this is the way that they're built to support this, and they may support order ahead and things like that. But again, you still have a bunch of your customers doing it the old way. You still need to wait for all them. Um, but the other bit is that it's hard to take a whole job to be done and replace just little bits of automation. It's when you're picking and choosing like that without stepping back and rethinking the whole process. It's sometimes really hard to actually speed up the process. You can look at individual steps and say like, oh, this takes 5 seconds, so I'm going to make a little conveyor belt inside that moves the drinks from here to here. But um, it's all really piecemeal, and it's like hard to actually be successful at it and be economically successful at it when you're like tied by like there needs to be a person inside who's going to take over for this if it goes bad. You end up really tying your hands, and then the automation to support that becomes much more expensive and like harder to fit. And it's just like when you can sort of step back and say, this is going to be a fully automated process, it allows you to move much faster and much better and build a much better solution to the problem, much more economically.
Yeah, I want
Because I
you to
need to
go.
start with a clean slate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of want to go a little bit deeper into that because I feel like that, creating it from well, you mentioned the clean slate, but from, the empty coffee cup, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And you need to, uh, look at the problem as a whole and not just those little bit of pieces that maybe in fast food, makes the fries cook quicker or more efficiently. You're looking at the entire process. So coming at it from your perspective on the technical side, how is it that benefit of being able to rethink the whole system? What does that do for a technology standpoint, when you're quite literally creating the system that's being created?
It so on one hand it's really freeing. Like, you're starting with a whiteboard and saying, well, how would I do this from scratch? But it also with that freedom comes a million little decisions of like, well, what do I build and what do I buy? And what are the right things for us to design ourselves? Because it's really important that we hit this throughput or we hit this cost or whatever this like performance metric is. Um, and what is easier for us to actually just buy because this is a well-solved problem. And we don't want to focus our engineering resources on this thing that isn't going to pay off, right? Or at least won't pay off in the near term. Um, So it becomes a series of decisions like that of like what do I want to do now? What do I want to where do I want to be in 2 years? And then where do I want to be down the road? Um, you need to think about how you balance all those things. But it does give you the freedom of like I don't need to leave room for a person in the middle of this. I don't need like the same sort of like safety standards as I might need to do if because it's only machines in there and I don't have people in there. Or like, in the areas where there will only be robots, like there will only be robots, and that's sort of freeing and lets you build the right machine for the job instead of like building something that's overkill. Um,
That's great.
so
I'm going to
yeah,
bring on. Oh, good.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I just sorry, I just want to like part of that conversation is I think one of the cool things about what we're doing is I mean we debate things, but I feel like our decision making is actually relatively straightforward at the end of the day because we have a customer that we can test with or a group of customers that we can test directly with. Like if we wanted to do something new and different, we could try it next week and just get the feedback and see if people like we just did this with a lid that we're selecting, which lid type. And, it's like, just do a quick survey. Hey, how do you like this lid compared to the last one? Right. And so, but between that and understanding the queuing problem and knowing that, convenience is really important to people, like it's a guiding principle. So anytime something, squeezes out and becomes the long pole in the tent, that becomes very obvious very quickly in our testing that, something is taking longer. So, okay, how do we get this thing isolated and, get it more efficient. So I think all the things that Rory is saying is like our decision making at the end of the day is relatively straightforward, like what we need to accomplish with it. Sometimes, it takes a little longer to find the tech, whether we make it or buy it and that sort of thing. But I think those are much easier than like, should we even be working on this? Right? We don't really have to have that debate much because well, Gene tells us if it's important or not.
well, yes, and like there's also like a very good forcing function with the way that we do our testing, where
Yeah.
3 days a week we are doing testing with customers, which is like incredibly good at like ensuring that 3 times a week, like the pod is ready to go and to serve customers. Like you can't actually spend a whole lot of time thinking about the ideal system when it needs to work. So it gives us like in this schedule is sort of I think has worked out quite well where we get the feedback from the customers very quickly. Like we can think about something and then like have it ready to go Tuesday when we're starting our testing. And it gives you a little bit of time to then go implement that. But like ensuring that we have something always working is very good at keeping us on task.
Yeah.
And so like, let's get
And we
something
were
going.
just talking, yeah, and we were just talking about this when we were moving our benches, right? We have the ultimate cheat code because we use our own product, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize that when you are the ones using your own robots, like Amazon has this ultimate cheat code, like they use all their own robotics and they have control over all of the systems and they can change the building completely. Well, we can change the inside of the pod completely. Like we have that level of flexibility. And I tell you what, it's a powerful cheat code to use your own stuff that you're developing because it just you are the customer, direct to customer. Like it's an amazing shortcut. Justin, you finally get to ask a question. Go ahead.
Well, no, I wonder, I feel like, Jane I'm watching her face as you're both answering this, and you both make it sound so simple. I think, Jane, is that accurate?
As a non-technical co-founder, nothing sounds simple to me. But I will say that everything they've said is true. Being in front of our customers is like the ultimate learning experience when we get to do that multiple times a week. Um, so yeah, we get feedback right away. It's really great. And I think the wonderful thing about having brought Rory on, and Rory as a person, is that he's just like is able to compartmentalize and like also but integrate everything that we're doing, which is like software and hardware and robotics and like operations and like even just the supply chain piece of this. And we were talking about inventory management and how that is going to be so different for us than what like the software that exists today is capable of addressing. And then immediately he was like putting together his own inventory management software, which is pretty awesome. So yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly what they're always talking about, but
All right. So Rory, what has been the most difficult part of the system to get right so far?
There's so on one hand there's like a million things, but on the other hand, I joined whatever like 3 months ago, whatever it was. It's like it's not like the pod wasn't working at that point, right? Like it's like the all the pieces were in place. Like, we could make drinks, wasn't as fast as we wanted, wasn't as reliably as we wanted, but we were starting from I was starting from a place of like, oh, it works. Let's make it more robust, let's make it faster, let's make it better, yeah, more reliable, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I feel like I was starting from a really great place here. Um, there's been like and then so a little bit of like there's a million different aspects of this system. Like it's not just a drink making robot, but like the whole company is like there's this operations aspect of like how are we going to fill the pods and service the pods, and how are we going to get the customers, and how are we going to interact with the customers. Um, so I guess like and a couple things that so something that totally surprised me, which perhaps shouldn't have, is like we found out probably a month after we started that like suddenly the T-Mobile antenna right down the street stopped working. And suddenly a third of our customers had no cell service, which was sort of one of those assumptions that we had all, I think, just sort of baked in, that like, yeah, someday we'll deal with like poor cell coverage or something like that. But then like it became front and center, something we really needed to deal with, of like, wow, our customers get on site, they can't download the app, it doesn't work. Like that was a surprising thing that we needed to do. Um, and it's great. Like I think this will help make us more robust as we grow, because like anytime you can deal with a problem like early on, instead of like waiting when you've already developed all these systems with baked in assumptions that turned out to be wrong, you're doing better. Um, One other thing that I think really surprised me is the number of times who have had to deal with multiple orders inside a car. Like I sort of came in and I was always assuming like, okay, one car pulls up and there's an order, and you just think about like cars that come through and cars being the same as orders. Um, and like it comes up every day in testing, probably, that we have cars that come through with multiple people having placed orders. Where the driver places an order, the passenger places an order, and then the kid in the back also places an order. Um, it's just like a thing we hadn't thought of, which sort of made us step back and then like think about, well, how do we handle this? In terms of like, what do they do when they get to the screen and we tell them what to do, and when they get to the window, how do we serve multiple orders into this car? Uh, and it's been a million little surprises, but the more we do, the more testing you do, like the sooner you can surface all these things, the better. And I think one other bit that has been, I think, turned out to be pretty important is this notion of like the site host, of like somebody who's going to be on site and actually interacting with the customers, where, I think this becomes useful and necessary, when there's a lot of cars there, and especially as people are getting familiar with the concept of like, what is this thing? Like we get, customers that come through all the time. They're like, I've been driving by for months and I pulled in today. Um, People who like don't read the signs that are right there in front of them telling them how this works.
Yeah.
But like having someone there as a friendly face of the company, I think really has like become like more obviously important to me. Of like, this is a thing we need to like not just like deal with, but also like I think we can lean into this and make this a real advantage, a real important bit of the ping experience.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's a learning that I think we should like really emphasize, is that we had always said we were going to have service like a host like during our peak customer service hours, but it cannot be understated. Like sometimes investors are like, oh, it's fully autonomous, great, you never have to people around again. But it can't be understated how useful and how wonderful it is to have a site host be there for customers. Like the other day, one of our regulars brought Rob and Rory asparagus from a farm stand, you know? I mean, Rob
Oh
ate
man,
all
it
of it.
was
Sorry,
so
Rory,
good.
we'll get you
I
some
did. It
more,
was
but
so good. I mean,
like really
fresh
nice.
asparagus is just something else. I'm telling you. Like, oh,
Yeah. But like being embedded means that the community reciprocates and the community there is there for us and like we're embedded. That's the important part is being embedded. And also how many like robotic startup CTOs are out there front and center 3 days a week with our customers every single day. Like it's Rob and Rory out there talking to customers. So I think that's really great.
All
Yeah, it's
right.
a good
So,
reminder when a customer's like, "Oh yeah, I see this bug in the app," and I'm like, "Yes, I know, I'm working on it." But it's a good reminder that like I really need to be working on
yeah.
this because like the customers see it. I mean, I think it's
how are
uh,
your hosting skills then, Rory? Are you becoming a better host?
I'm like a 300 millirobs. I'm not very good at this game, but I try.
Uh, yeah, he does great. He does great.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
most
awesome.
CTOs don't have hosting on their resume, so now you do.
Yeah, under weaknesses, I think is where I put mine. But
Oh,
baby steps, we'll get better.
All right, so
well,
as you look ahead, the next, you've been here for 3 months, but put your hat on and look out 6, 12 months, even up to 36 months. Where do you see the technology, evolving to?
Yeah, I mean yeah, I'm pretty excited about it's sort of where we go from here. Like so right now, obviously we have one pod and we're doing our testing 2 hours a day, three days a week. Um so obviously like we are um we'll be expanding that. And then there'll be a threshold there when we start expanding the hours, like there won't be like necessarily a huge step. Like there'll just be more, and we'll get more confidence. We'll start paying customers, like having paying customers come through, and I think that's going to be a pretty big milestone, just because like that means that we're confident in the product and the experience and the service that we're going to be offering. Um, and then we'll get to start building more pods, and I think that gets pretty exciting. I mean, so like we'll like another batch of pods will be good because then like we're accumulating all this like this wish list of things that we want to do a little bit different the next time around, and things that like yeah aren't important like enough to go back and redesign the pod. Like we're not trying to get this one to be perfect, like the ideal. Like we need to get it working, get it going, and then we can move on and to the next one. So like incorporating all the learnings into the next design cycle for the next round of pods will be pretty good, pretty exciting. And then once we start getting to a point where suddenly, okay, there's another hub that we're then expanding into, like in a different area where we're servicing a series of pods from another hub, and then things start to scale, and that's where uh, you really start to learn if all the like scaling that you built in early on actually works. Um,
Well,
but
this is awesome. I really appreciate your perspective on this. Hearing about your background and why the jump to Ping was so easy and made sense for everything. So that's awesome. I'm so happy to hear you share your story. Rob, Jane, are we missing anything? Should we only have him for a little bit longer? Should we hammer him with another question?
no, no, I think that was like a good intro to all the things that Rory's doing. But yeah, I think it's just exciting. Even in the short time that he's been here, like we've already redesigned and improved so many parts of the system, lidding, labeling, the way the beacons work, like all these things are just like it's getting better and better. And like now it's like starting to accelerate. We're bringing on some some interns, some co-ops for the summer. So like now he has this little team, and we're getting him a workshop, right? It's like, like just think of all the cool things we get to do. We're building another podlet that we can, be able to do all our testing on. So now it's just like, it's really cool because like it's all like really starting to just build up, and now I feel like we're popping, which is super cool. So it just like, you get your daily stand-ups, you got your, tools coming in, you got your, next iteration, throw that on the ground. Okay, great. And that's, it's just such a cool time. And it's so awesome to have like such a great fit that, I think we're going to be, bringing Rory onto this a lot more to talk through, these fun bits, because I think this development, our roadmap is just super exciting, and it's there's a lot to do, and it's just super cool.
Yeah. Well, I think I have at least 8 questions I didn't even get to.
Oh,
yeah. So we can definitely do this again for sure. Jane, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything more.
Good deal.
Cool.
Well, Rory, so Rory was saying this is his first video call from his new office. So, it'll be memorialized forever. This is going to be great. So we'll get you some background over there, and
we'll have to work on this. My home office, I have a bunch of Lego in the background, so we'll see. Maybe I'll get something going here.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, guys, I really appreciate you joining me today. Rory, thanks so much for sharing your perspective, your insight, your experience. This has been really great.
Oh, great. This has been super fun.
On behalf of my guest today, Rory MacKean, the CTO of Ping, and co-founders Jane Lowe and Rob Whitten, you've been watching and listening to the Morning Ping podcast. Until next time.